welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we are stepping into an era where music, well, it fundamentally changed its job description.
That's a great way to put it.
It stopped being about polite, predictable structures, and it really started demanding to be understood as, high drama, as philosophy, even personal confession. So if you're looking to master the deep architecture of the Romantic period, from these huge sweeping narratives all the way down to the tiny emotional choices in a single bar of music, you are absolutely in the right place.
That is exactly the mission today. Our goal is full mastery of this pivotal era, Week 16 style.
Okay.
We are going to be defining the Romantic era's core characteristics, identifying its key composers, and then diving deep into two fundamental forms.
One.
Rondo and theme and variations, and we'll get right down to the specific compositional devices they use to generate all that raw emotional power.
Let's start with that revolutionary context then. When we talk about the Romantic era in music, what is the timeline we are actually working with?
We're looking at roughly 1830 to about 1900.
Okay, and what was the seismic shift that made the music from this period so different from what came just before it?
The shift is fundamentally one of purpose. I mean, if you think about the preceding classical era, it valued objectivity, balance, structured beauty.
You think of Mozart's clarity.
Exactly, Mozart's clarity. The Romantic period championed subjectivity, expression, and complexity. It was a really decisive turn toward articulating the composer's inner emotional world.
So they weren't just writing beautiful songs anymore. They were basically writing musical diaries.
Yes, that's a perfect analogy.
So how does that emotional mandate translate into the specific characteristics that we actually hear in the music?
Well, it leads directly to what is maybe the most defining trait: program music.
Right.
This is perhaps the biggest conceptual change. The music is explicitly written to evoke a specific non-musical subject.
Like a scene, a person, a place.
A person, a place, a feeling, a story. Composers started giving us these titles that were literary, imaginative, really evocative, reflecting the specific mood they wanted you to feel.
So we move away from something like Sonata in C major to Schumann's Curious Story or Heller's Blind Man's Buff.
Precisely.
That immediately tells you the composer has an agenda. They intend to take you on a journey. But structurally, how do they make the music feel more emotional?
They made it structurally unsettling, and this is where harmonic complexity really comes into the picture.
Okay.
Composers began intensely exploring chromaticism, so using notes outside of the strict, simple major or minor scale to create color and ambiguity.
They started wandering.
They started wandering far away from the safety of the tonic key, complicating harmonies, and crucially, delaying resolutions.
And that lack of certainty, that translates directly into musical tension for the listener.
It creates emotional depth. That's the brilliance of it, using complex harmony as a tool for psychological complexity.
So if the music sounds unsettled, it's because it's trying to communicate an unsettled feeling.
Yes. And what about the melodic and rhythmic elements?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, because on the surface, you get these beautiful, soaring lyric melodies.
The kind you can't forget.
Exactly. The long, singing, unforgettable lines we associate with, say, Chopin or Tchaikovsky. But beneath that beauty, the rhythmic complexity just ramps up dramatically.
Right.
We see this pervasive use of things like triplets, 16th note figures, syncopated patterns.
And, crucially, cross rhythms.
Yes, like playing 2 beats in one hand against 3 beats in the other.
And that creates this constant sense of push and pull.
Even when the melody sounds calm on the surface.
Exactly. The whole experience of listening to romantic music is often feeling pulled in multiple directions at once. The music uses both the horizontal structure, the melody and rhythm, and the vertical structure, the harmony, to draw you right into that emotional density.
So now that we understand the language they were using, let's identify the voices who actually invented it. Who are the central architects of this sound that our sources highlight?
For this level of mastery, we really have to recognize the titans who forged the later, grander phases of the period.
Brahms,
Liszt, and Tchaikovsky. Their works really epitomize that sweeping emotional scale.
But the Romantic spirit was also shaped by some earlier figures. We should also recognize composers like Field, Heller, and the very fascinating figure of Mendelssohn.
Yes.
What is Mendelssohn? Born right on the cusp of the era, tell us about the intellectual depth of the period.
Mendelssohn, born in 1809, he provides a perfect counterpoint to the idea that the Romantics were just unbridled emotionalists.
Right, that they were just throwing feelings at the page.
Exactly. Yes, they prized expression, but they were also profound scholars. Mendelssohn was absolutely instrumental in reviving the work of J.S. Bach, a composer whose complexity had largely been forgotten.
He gave the first modern performance of Bach's monumental St. Matthew Passion in 1829. Why was that so revolutionary at the time?
It was revolutionary because it forced the 19th century audience to look backward and connect their own intense present with the rigorous structure of the past.
So it shows that these architects of sound were deeply rooted in history.
Yes, not just inventing in a vacuum, they were finding ways to infuse Bach's intellectual rigor into their own expressive vocabulary. And that intellectual pursuit helped shape the really elaborate forms they favored.
That makes perfect sense. They needed forms that could contain that expressive range while still providing some kind of structure. So let's move to structural mastery, starting with the rondo. Now, we can assume the listener knows the basic definition, but what's the function of the rondo and why was it so popular as a final statement?
Well, rondo form is defined by cyclical repetition and contrast. You have one primary theme, the A section, which is repeated several times.
And then it's interspersed with these contrasting sections, B, C, and so on.
Right, so it's the structural equivalent of coming home again and again.
And that provides immense structural satisfaction.
It does. And because of its lively, reassuring character, it was very often chosen for the final movement of a sonata or a concerto. It gives the work a definitive, energetic conclusion.
And the most common format is Abacia.
The Abacia structure is the one we see most often, yes.
Okay, so how does that sense of structural certainty play out harmonically? Does the composer ever use that recurring A section to try and destabilize us?
No. In a rondo, the safety net is the key. The structural A sections are almost always firmly rooted in the tonic key.
That's the anchor.
That's the anchor. The instability, all the drama that's contained in the contrasting episodes.
The B and C section.
The B and C sections. That's where the romantic composer can really deploy that chromaticism we were just talking about.
Oh, I see.
So those contrasting sections are deliberately transposed or placed in different, sometimes quite distant keys to create variety and tension.
But the predictability is always that return to A in the tonic.
Always. Now, a romantic composer might make the B section much longer or more developmental. They're essentially forcing the rondo to function like a mini-drama before that inevitable comforting return.
So they stretched the form.
They stretched it without breaking the basic promise.
That ability to stretch and transform, that brings us perfectly to our second structural pillar, theme and variations.
It does.
If rondo relies on predictable return, theme and variations seems to rely on constant, almost radical change.
And that's the beautiful contrast between them. Theme and variations begins with a theme, often very simple and clear, and then repeats it with these deliberate, transformative changes.
It's like a playground for them.
It really became a playground for romantic composers to show off their compositional genius.
When we talk about variation, what are the actual building blocks that a composer can manipulate? Is it just changing the melody a bit?
Oh, it's everything. The mastery in analyzing a variation form piece lies in identifying which specific elements the composer has chosen to alter in each repetition. The sources emphasize that virtually any musical element can be changed. The melody, harmony, texture, form, key, mode, meter, or tempo.
Wow, that is an extensive palette.
Yeah.
Can you give us a concrete example of how they might wield, say, rhythm and texture?
Of course. Think of a piece like Brahms' Variations on a theme by Handel. He doesn't just repeat the theme prettily.
No.
One variation might entirely shift the rhythmic character from quarter notes, just running 16th notes in both hands. Another might switch to complex dotted rhythms.
So it feels totally different.
Completely. A third might introduce syncopation and vastly disjunct intervals in the melody, which makes it sound angular and agitated. It's a rhythmic and textural workout.
Allowing the composer to present, 20 different emotional perspectives on the same core idea?
That's it exactly. The theme is the identity, and the variations are the personality changes, reflecting the complexity of the human condition the Romantics love to explore.
So to fully analyze this, we have to zoom in even further, to the smallest level of choice, the individual note that generates tension.
We do, and we have to look at two specific non-harmonic tones requested for analysis. Suspensions and appoggiaturas.
These are the micro devices.
These are the micro devices of tension and release that color all romantic music.
Okay, let's start with the suspension. How does this create that wonderful feeling of delayed gratification.
A suspension is a three-part process, which is crucial for mastery, preparation, dissonance, and resolution.
Okay, break that down.
A chord tone is played. That's the preparation. But then, when the supporting harmony changes underneath it, that previously harmonious note is deliberately held over,
Creating the dissonance.
creating the dissonance. It clashes momentarily with the new chord, and then that suspended note resolves downwards into the new harmony. It's a momentary sweet clash, a hesitation before relief.
A lingering note, fighting the new harmony before it finally submits. That sounds like a really powerful emotional tool.
It is.
Now, how does that contrast with the appoggiatura?
The appoggiatura operates on the same principle of dissonance and resolution, but the critical distinction is its timing and its intensity.
Okay. An appoggiatura is a non-harmonic tone that is performed on the beat. It enters as a dissonance right when the harmony changes, hitting hard on the strong part of the measure.
So that immediate impact gives it a much stronger sense of stress or urgency, right? It's not prepared, it just appears.
Exactly. Because it hits on the beat, it adds immediate weight and emotional stress to the melody, which fits perfectly with the expressive, dramatic goals of the Romantic era.
And for technical mastery, we need to know that composers and performers didn't treat these notes casually. There are specific rules governing the performance of an appoggiatura, aren't there?
Yes, and that rule is vital. It dictates emphasis.
How so?
For instance, the sources detail that if an appoggiatura occurs before a dotted note, the appoggiatura receives 2/3 of the note value.
Like thirds, okay.
And if it occurs in a compound meter, it gets one full beat. The reason for this is profound. It ensures the dissonant note, the emotional core of the device, is given maximum length and weight.
Which guarantees the listener feels that tension before it resolves. Yes. Mastery means identifying not just the note, but that precise moment of emphasized tension within a rondo episode or a variation.
We've certainly covered the expansive scope needed for genuine mastery here. From the broad characteristics of program music and chromatic harmony, right down to the 2/3 rule for an appoggiatura.
We defined the 1830 to 1900 period, we reviewed the shift towards complexity, and we explored the structures that housed that complexity.
The cyclical, often stretched rondo form.
And the transformative potential of theme and variations. And all of these structures are rendered dramatic by the precision of devices like the suspension and that tension-laden appoggiatura.
So if the classical era valued clear lines and harmonic balance, the Romantic era, really, it valued emotional excess and intensity.
At its core, yes.
Think about the two forms we discussed. Rondo, reliant on a predictable return, and variation, reliant on constant, radical transformation. For a period so defined by emotional extremes and the complicated nature of human experience, how effectively did composers use that inherent contrast between repetition and transformation to reflect the dramatic, cyclical nature of life itself?
That's a great question.
That tension between the inevitable and the unexpected is what makes the Romantic sound so immediate, even today. And that's something worth seeking out the next time you listen to Brahms or Tchaikovsky.